Hello everybody, it's Nick here, back again with another video. Now, what is today's video? I'm here to talk about why I don't like Apple's new design language, specifically liquid glass. I have a few opinions about it, but I'll get into those in just a minute. I just wanted to say that since the release of iOS 26, public perception has been sort of up and down. I don't really know since I haven't really been keeping up to speed with what the public's reaction to iOS 26 is, but in the grand scheme of things, people like it. It's a good release, that's fine. The features they added are great. Some people are mixed about the overall user interface of Liquid Glass, and quite frankly, when they unveiled it at WWDC, I thought it was cool. Except when I tried out the beta for myself. Now, granted, I tried beta 1 and 2, which were absolutely abhorrent on my 11 Pro. It was laggy, buggy, overheated a lot, and it just killed my battery. And I think, well, there were several reasons behind that. For one, it was still early beta software, so nothing's perfect when it just comes out in beta stages. So that it definitely explained why my system was performing really slow and being really laggy, is because it was still in beta stage and not quite entirely optimized for older hardware like the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, 12, 12 mini, etc. However, when I upgraded to later versions of the beta, I just wasn't happy with the design language that Apple has gone in. And I ended up going back to iOS 18 because I went back to iOS 18 because there was one crucial thing that was a deal breaker to me. Now, I am someone who is currently daily driving an iPhone 12 mini. It has the battery has degraded significantly, and I can barely get through the day without needing to charge it at least several times. Now, I have a shortcut set up on this device to basically turn on a whole bunch of things that help optimize battery life, especially when in low power. Because low power mode is great, but it doesn't quite do everything that I want it to. Sure, it turns off like background settings and everything like that, but at this point I think it's more placebo than anything else, but that could just be me. But basically, what my script here is set out to do is it's set to turn on low power mode, turn appearance to dark, turn on reduce motion, turn on reduce transparency, switch to a black wallpaper, turn on grayscale and color filter, so basically making the screen black and white, turning reduce white point on, so basically reducing the brightness lower than the setting will let you go in settings, and then also turning on increased contrast. The reason why I have this shortcut set up is when my battery gets down to like 20%, all these settings turn on, and basically my iPhone functions as a very, I try to optimize it so it uses the least amount of power possible. For example, reduce motion, that disables a lot of the animations, which animations, while yes, they're just small animations that are very highly optimized by Apple, they do consume battery life, and especially on older devices with older batteries, that is crucial. So I have that turned off. I have reduced transparency turned off, so the GPU spends less time trying to render the transparency effects in iOS, as well as turning color filters on. If the display needs to render less colors, then thus it needs less power to do that sort of thing, and all the other stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Now I have this set up for when my battery goes below 20%, and it turns on immediately, and it's a godsend. It has real implications for me. I'm able to extend my battery at least upwards of 45 minutes longer than if I just had low power mode on. And this was also when I was still using my 11 Pro. And I had gotten a new battery for that thing about a year and a half ago, before I ended up switching to this 12 mini. And so this shortcut did actually make a difference for me. Now, when I updated to the beta version of iOS 26, they implemented liquid glass. And At first I was like, okay, this is a cool new design language. It's about fucking time that we got a new design language, since we literally haven't had an operating system redesign since iOS 7 back in 2013. And so leading up to WWDC, I was quite excited about the rumors of a radical user interface change, since we haven't seen that in over a decade at this point. And what we got was interesting, but quite frankly, disappointing. I feel like they just kind of slapped on a new coat of paint around the edges, but fundamentally, not really a whole lot was changed. And I'll get into that a little bit further. But back to the whole low power mode script thing that I made. When I was test driving iOS 26 developer beta 1 and 2, I still had this script set up, and when it turned on, it did everything that I asked it to. Granted, a little broken, given that shortcuts probably wasn't exactly optimized in beta 1 and 2, but I figured that would get better moving forward. The big problem was that one of the core things that this script specifically did when turning the icons to dark mode, only the actual middle of the icon itself would be visible. So in this case, like the camera and the camera app, that would be the only thing visible, and the photos icon, like the white borders, all that sort of stuff would just be gone. Now in iOS 26, when I had this script run, it had a little itty bitty outline for the icon for the liquid glass effect. And I was like, this completely defeats the purpose of my script. It's still rendering that little layer of liquid glass on top of the icon. And from the beta and even in the public release, there's no way to turn that off. And my standpoint was that that's taking up valuable battery life. That is wasting pixel energy that could be turned off, because this is an OLED display after all, so it can turn off those pixels and save the battery life. iOS 26 has the app icon overlay, and you can't turn that off anywhere in settings, and obviously you can't jailbreak the phone and force it to not have that on. So that was a deal breaker to me, which was why I ended up downgrading back to iOS 18, because for one, the performance was absolutely atrocious, and the whole liquid glass icon overlay on the home screen was a deal breaker for this low power mode script that I made. And so I then went back to iOS 18, and I just didn't really care too much about it. Now that the public version of it is available, I haven't updated my phone from iOS 18, so it's still running 18 because of that one deal breaker of mine. However, at my work we have a suite of Macs, and on one of them I have a virtual machine running macOS 26 Tahoe. And I got to play around with it a bit and see what the liquid glass effects on macOS were like. And quite frankly, I'm very disappointed in the design language of liquid glass. They painted it as this thing of being like a radical design language change with this glassy transparency effect, kind of similar to that of Windows Vista or Windows 7, but Apple-esque. And so I was excited to see what they did. And on the surface, from what they showed at the keynote and core pictures and stuff, it looks different. It's noticeable. When in reality, that's not really the case. If I'm being honest with you, there are some areas where the liquid glass is noticeable. Mostly button switches, mostly sliders. When you slide it, the actual button pops out and you can actually see that glass effect on it. And it's crystal clear glass. And that's noticeable. But other than that, liquid glass is literally just lower transparency mode, semi-translucent menus with a little bit of a refraction effect added to it. That's about it. Other than that, window decorations, core controls, menu items, glyphs, all that sort of thing are all flat. All flat. The core interface of Apple's operating system looks exactly the same. When you open an app on the iPhone, the background is still white or dark if you have dark mode on. The glyphs are still the same. All that sort of stuff. Same design language, same font. When I heard the rumors of radical redesign, I was thinking more like something kind of going back to sort of something like iOS 6, where we have like a linen background, not necessarily like a linen background per se, but like something noticeably different other than just a white background with menus being distinguished by like slightly different shades of white, gray, or black. I was expecting something a little bit more than that, and quite frankly, what Apple has debuted, I'm very disappointed with. I I understand why they did this whole why they did the whole redesign to begin with was to take away or to have people forget about the absolute shit show that was Apple Intelligence last year. And they still haven't fixed it, and quite frankly, I think they might be caving in and using Google's Gemini instead of making their own, because the AI team, that's a whole nother story for another time, but it was a shit show. So the whole focus of this year was on Liquid Glass and how radical of a redesign of their like design language is. But it's not. It's not at all. And it's just like, Apple, you had an opportunity to really bring a new design language to the table here, and I feel like they fumbled the ball on this one. They really did. Yes, some menus you can see the liquid glass and it looks beautiful, but other than that, like specifically on macOS, like the Finder window, if you look at it, like the sidebar, the main window where you see all your files, white, slightly different shades of white. There's no liquid glass effects on the sidebar. Like if you have all my files, AirDrop, or applications selected on the sidebar, it's literally just the same shade of blue that it was in macOS 15. Exactly the same. Nothing noticeably different. Whereas if you're going from macOS 10 Mavericks to Yosemite, completely different story. With Mavericks, you have the light gray window decorations with the buttons that are clearly outlined. The sidebar is a slight hint of blue slash gray, and then the window itself, the rest of the window itself is white with other distinguishing features like the scroll bars and other stuff. When switching to Yosemite, they switched it all to white with some translucency effects. If you had a metal was launched in 2015, but effect and have some translucency in the background. So that did shift it up a bit. But other than that, that was it. Which that was a fundamental redesign, which that is acceptable. But when going from macOS 15 to 26, all they did was round the corners a little bit of the window design on macOS, and that's about it. Maybe change like adding some rounded corners to things, but that's about it. There's nothing significant about this redesign. Sure, the icons look a bit prettier, and you can like theme the dock folders and like tint the icons and stuff, but that's not enough for me. For me to want to upgrade to a new operating system that has a coat of paint, I need it to be significantly different. The reason why I was so excited about iOS 6 to iOS 7 was because everything was completely changed, completely rewritten from the ground up. The entire way that windows were rendered was completely different. Instead of going to an operating system that used primarily PNG images for the background and like top menu bar and stuff, to a completely graphically rendered like a black and white system that did not use PNG images, that's radical. That's something different. That's something noticeable. And Apple really they didn't do enough in my opinion. And quite frankly, it's just disappointing to me. Regardless of like the new coat of paint that they added to the operating operating system is great. All the features they added are awesome. I think they're great. But the visual aspect is just so disappointing, and it's really hard for me to look past it. And sure, maybe it'll evolve over the next few years, but given like the track record of like Apple changing their operating system like design language year to year, it's slim. They change some like glyph icons or the way some things are laid out, but fundamental like window designs, core animations, or like even just like contextual menus and how they show up, they don't change. Except when you have a case like Mavericks to Yosemite or iOS 6 to iOS 7. That was a radical change. And they had the opportunity to do that here. I feel like they definitely have the money and the team to do this, but they just didn't. And it's like, why? You had an opportunity to do this and you didn't. And it's just disappointing, man. It really is. I feel like they could have done a lot more with this radical redesign, other than just be like, oh, it's glass. And even throughout the beta stages, they were dumbing down the glass because people were like, oh, it's hard to read. I'm like, didn't you guys even think about the fact that if something called liquid glass would be hard to fucking read? Apparently that didn't come across to them. And now in 26.1 beta, they added the ability, or I think they even released 26.1. They added a switch in settings that allowed you to change it from clear to tinted, which basically makes it look like iOS 18 all over again, just with more rounded corners and like a bit more of a poppy animation to it. But other than that, it's literally the fucking same. Apple, what the hell? I have all sorts of opinions about Apple and within the past few years, but they really just cheaped out on this one, and it's just disappointing, man. It really is. I am an Apple loyalist, and I will say that to the end. I have an entire Mac collection. I have an iPhone collection. I love their stuff, but lately, I don't love their stuff. I mean, hardware-wise, they're making great stuff, but even then, like, hardware designs are getting bland. They're kind of cutting out on some stuff, but when it comes to software design, it's just fucking bland, yo. It's just, ugh. And I know I'm repeating myself time and time again here, but they really had the opportunity to do something new, to change the overall direction of computer design language all over again, like they did in 2013. After 2013, skeuomorphic designs and arrow-like appearances started going away in favor of flat designs. Web design completely changed from being skeuomorphic buttons and like glossy buttons to flat, bland designs. And it's just gonna stay that way now. I know people want to deny this, but Apple really dictates design language. When Apple changes something, the rest of the world follows suit. Just look at it. If you look at website design post 2013, it looks radically different. And it's all thanks to Apple and their design language, because they have such an influence over software design and over what people think should be the status quo and what should be the norm and what is considered premium and flashy and what people want. And this time around, they really dropped the ball, and it's just disappointing. That being said, maybe things will change in the future. Who knows? We might be getting a new CEO sometime soon, so hopefully we'll be having more care put towards like hardware changes, and hopefully we get a new software design team so that we can actually get a visually appealing operating system. Because quite frankly, iOS 26 and macOS 26 are the same thing with rounded corners and changed animations and maybe a little bit more translucent stuff. But other than that, exactly the same. And that's not a good enough reason for me to upgrade because of a new coat of paint. Anyways, that's it for me. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.